Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at mxlinux. Yes, one of my favorite Debian-based distros. mxlinux is based on Debian 11, and I'm out at the website right now, and as you can see, it's got a quick description here. mxlinux is a cooperative venture between NTX and mxlinux communities, a family of operating systems that are designed to combine elegant and efficient desktops with high stability and solid performance. And as we scroll down here a bit, you can see some of the different things here, and it mentions here that Xfce 4.18 is featured in this release here, and that's one thing that I really like, is that we got the latest Xfce. Xfce is the flagship edition desktop. And so if we go here onto the download page, this is the one I want to choose here, is the MX21.3 Oz version, AHS, and that gives us the latest kernel. So I think that's a great choice, and that takes you out here to the SourceForge website. So I'm just going to download this real quick, grab it, and then I'll be right back. I teleported down into the corner. So yes. We'll just start this up here, go with the startup. And as you can see, we do have the 21.3 Oz edition here, still known as Wildflower. And there's a cool splash screen. I like that wallpaper background there. That is very cool. So here we come into the desktop. And looking good. It even has a kind of the Unity style setup there with the bar over on the side there. I think that's called the desktop setting there for the panel. And then we have a conky up there in the corner. Very nice. And then our installer link. But I kind of like this setup here where they got it off here on the side. And there's our menu, whisker menu, I believe. And then the wallpaper. The wallpaper is really nice. So I'm just going to run this installer here. And so now it's checking the media. And off the bat, I can tell that's not the Calamares installer. So this is an MX, looks like customized installer. Cool. So I'll just go ahead and hit next there, go with the defaults. And we'll just kind of see how this installer works out. So here it's asking for the type of installation. And of course, I'm just going to format the whole drive, just erase everything that's on it. So I'm going to go with that, just the regular install, use the entire disk. So that's going to erase everything I have on here. And now it's already copying the system. That's very cool. So it looks like that it actually gets the installation process starting in the background as we go. So that's a time saver. I really like that. Very efficient. That's something I haven't seen before. Very cool. So now I'm moving on to the next step and checking out my time settings. And at the same time, it's already kind of installing in the background. Nice. And so here's our default user account. So we can just type in a username real quick and then give it a password. And then we'll just create a root account as well. So I'll check that box and then just give it a password as well. If you like to keep things simple, you can just use the same password if you're not really in a situation where security is a huge deal. And here you got save live desktop changes. I like that too, because if you made changes in the live desktop environment, you can actually change those here or save those changes here and have it show up in your install. So that is nice. And so now it is actually kind of finishing up the install here after we got through all those steps. So all we got to do now is wait for it to finish. And after going through all that, we were already around 70% through. So again, what an ingenious time-saving idea for the installer. Very efficient. To me, that's really impressive. A+ for that. Good job, MX team. So this is really just about done. I was going to pause the video and say, I'll be back when it's done, but it is so far up there already. I might as well not pause. I might as well just yap and babble and to fill up the dead air time. So anyways, yeah, now we're installing the grub. So that's the final part. The grub is our boot. And so everybody likes to have grubby boots. So now we are at 97% already. Updating the init RAM FS file system there. And there we go, installation complete. So that was quick and easy. I'm just going to hit finish here and just let it reboot. And then it's asking me to remove my media, so I'm going to do that real quick. And it looks like everything went okay, so cool. There's our grub screen with a nice background too. I like the theming there. So I'm just going to boot right in, and I can see the kernel is at about 6.0 something. I forgot what it was. I didn't look at it that close, but we do have the newer kernel in there already, and nice splash screen. I like the purple there and now I'm just going to log in here. So it looks like everything went just fine. Then we should be seeing a desktop. We still have the dark wallpaper and beautiful coloring there. I really like that. I guess if I was going to critique it, though, I would say the wallpaper is a little too dark for the theming on the panel and so forth, because they all just kind of blend together, but it's all a matter of taste. Some people might like that, actually. So here's our MX tools here. And if you go in here, you can get quick access to all these different handy tools. And to me, this is like one of the strong points in mxlinux, are all the great custom tools. Right now, I'm selecting the codecs tool, and this will let me just install any extra proprietary codecs that maybe didn't go in by default. So that kind of gets you all covered on the codec. So really nice. There's our conky, date and time, system sounds. Here's a tweak setting. So this is another thing that I think is really cool. And so here you can instantly tweak your various aspects of your desktop, like the panel. So if we want this on the bottom, we can just check display panel horizontally. Right now it's in the vertical setting. And then if I hit apply, then we have it on the bottom. So that's our more traditional look. That's something that I kind of prefer myself. And then we have our whisker menu over there that's still displaying properly. And then you can also restore default. And then we have our Docklike. So this is our Docklike plugin, which is another thing I really like that MX does, is that they incorporate this plugin. And so we can hit this show preview thumbnails, and then you get thumbnail previews just like you do in Cinnamon and KDE and GNOME and so forth. That's something that's always been kind of missing in Xfce. And so the Docklike taskbar is really cool. A+ for that as well. And so now I'm going to open up Thunar here, and you can see our default theming is a light theme. And so here we can easily choose our different themes. There's I don't even know how you would pronounce that. Matcha dark, and dark sea. So these will kind of give you different accents. That's kind of a mint look there. And then we have another light. Oh, it's blinding though. I kind of like the dark themes. There's MX Comfort Dark, and that is actually quite comfortable. I do like that, actually. And then Graybird Dark. That I might even like better. So to me, that's kind of a toss-up there. I like the themes. For our window manager, this will change our top bar on our window, so that way it'll match up there. So now we have a matching top bar with the Graybird. Or if you want just a different one, you could actually change something different, although that one's made for a light theme. But we could use like a dark Purell. So if you want the top of your window to kind of stand out, you could just kind of use something different, have a darker look. And then there are different icon themes. There's GNOME. That's the old GNOME. Not a big fan of that look, actually. And the Adwaita, that's kind of all the old style. So I'm going to stick with Numix there. I think that is probably the pick of the litter for icons. And then here's our compositor settings, and this is another cool thing. You can choose between XFWM and Compton. If you're having some kind of issues with XFWM, then Compton is a nice alternative you can quickly switch over to. And personally, I haven't had any issues with XFWM at all. Here's our display settings where you can change your resolution, and then our config options, which I wouldn't really change personally, and other, I think all the defaults are just great there as well. So that kind of covers those. So I'm just going to close that real quick. And then back on our welcome screen here, a really nice, useful welcome screen. So MX did great there. And if we right click on our desktop, I'm just going to go over here to the desktop settings and maybe just kind of adjust our wallpaper here real quick. And it looks like a lot of choices here. That has actually got great color in it with a honeybee up there, it looks like, on a flower. Of course, if you're afraid of bees, this might freak you out a bit, but the color scheming is really nice in that wallpaper. And I don't have a show desktop icon, so I guess I just got to kind of minimize everything. But I'll add that to the panel in a little bit. And here's some other choices we got for wallpaper. That's kind of nice. And then a duck scene swimming in a lot of algae. There's our original wildflower background that was default in the first release of MX21. And then there's kind of a nice background. It's got, if you like the black in the background, this is more of a charcoal gray. That gives you a little more contrast with the panel. And so that might be a nice alternative. There's a cool castle, a lily pad in a pond, a nice MX paper there. And I like that. That might be something I might just keep there. That's got a really nice contrast. I think for me, that really works with a dark theme. So I think I'll go with that. I like the blur in the background, so it's kind of got that look. And then here on the desktop, we can show our home folders if we like, or our trash. So these are some extra options for our default icons. So that's under the icon tab here. Nice. Then here, single click to activate items. So if you click on it once, then it'll open up items on the desktop. If you don't like that, you can uncheck that box and then you can double click and it'll open up in a double click. That's something to take note of too, especially if you don't like double clicking. Same here in Thunar. Here, Thunar by default is set up to just single click. And right now I'm just hovering over these. And when you hover over it, they automatically highlight. If you actually click on it, you'll go inside the folder. So if you want to double click, just go into preferences here. And then before I adjust that though, I'm just going to go down here to the format, because I always do this first, and change the date format to today at the time. And then behavior. This is where we want to go to double click. So this will activate our double click to activate items. So if we do that, now if we want to enter a folder, we can click on it once to highlight it and then double click it to go inside. Then under view on the side pane, I'm going to go to image preview. I'm going to check that anyway. I don't have any images in here though, unfortunately, but if I were to click on an image, then it would show up down here in the corner right in here. So that's kind of nice. It's a newer feature in Xfce. It's something that just came out in 4.18, which we are running here in MX. In 4.18, we now have finally picture previews in Thunar, which makes it practically the perfect file manager. And then here we have our whisker menu, and you notice that we got the categories over on the right side and then the items on the left, which is kind of the opposite of the way I'm used to. But it does hover. That's cool. I like that. I'm going to right click on the icon and select properties here. And then I'm going to go over to first in general here. No, actually it's under appearance. If I go here and position categories next to panel button, that'll put them over to where I'm used to. That's kind of where I'm comfortable with. I like that they are already hover, or that they already change the categories. Also, under general, I'm going to click show as icons. And I kind of like that. To me, that's kind of a little bit more of a modern look, and stretch that out a little bit to get 3 in each row there. So yeah, that's a nicer look. I kind of like that. That's more like it. So now if we start off in the accessories, now that we got this situated, there's our calculator. That's one of my favorite calculators, the calculator. And here we can go into our notation modes, and you got lots of choices. And then under view, we got our scientific mode, which is nice. And even a paper mode. This is actually kind of cool. If you want to do calculations and have a paper style, we could just go in here and just put in something like, well, turn on my numlock first. 59 plus 68, 66, and then it gives us the total here at 125, and it's all kind of laid out on paper here, so you have a nice little trail. So if you're doing a lot of calculations, that is really cool. Something I haven't really seen on any other calculator apps, although I haven't looked real hard, but I think that's cool. And then under our development, we have Genie, we have games here, like L Breakout 2, that's kind of cool. Mahjong, Peg E, and Swell Boop. Nice. And then we have our graphics apps here. And so here we just got our basics here, Libre Draw and so forth. And same with internet, we got our Firefox. And then multimedia, we do have VLC and Player installed, so that is nice too. But overall, somewhat bare bones, which is good. It gives the user a lot of room to install the stuff that you really want. And then MX Tools is probably one of the big deals in the distro because there's so many different tools, Deb Installer and your apt-based command line package manager. So you could actually go in here and I could just kind of log in there. And then it's asking if I want to run my apt update now. And yeah, why not? I'm due for an update. That's always a good thing to do when after a fresh install anyway, just to make sure you're updated. And so it is grabbing some updates here. And it's already at 99%, 98. And now it's asking if I want to run the update. Okay. I think that's just kind of repeating the update here. So I probably would want to go with no. I'm going to make this bigger too, but I'll just go with yes again, just in case there's multiple updates and maybe it's just kind of coming up for multiple. So I'll hit that again, but I'm kind of looking at the info on the update and they all look the same there. So I think all it's doing is just repeating the update process. So I'm just going to select no this time right there and press enter. And then it should ask for an upgrade and there it is. Okay. Ignore these upgrades as a default, but I'm going to scroll up and hit upgrade package now. And then I'll hit yes. So that was a little bit confusing that it was kind of looping there, but I think there is a logic to it also. So now it's doing its upgrade, so it's upgrading the updates that were found there, and then that should get us completely up to date. And there we are. No pending upgrade, so it looks like we're all complete. So I'm just going to arrow down here and hit quit. But it's kind of cool, the other options. You can search for more kernels and so forth. Nice. All right, got that out of the way. Let's press on here in the menu. So what other kind of cool tools do we got? We got our iDevice mounter. That's kind of cool. So if you got an iPhone, you can mount your device there. It's kind of specialized, I think. MX boot options. Actually, this is kind of worth noting. I'm going to jump in here real quick. And by default, we're using sysinit V here on mxlinux. So that's our init system. Most distros use systemd, and personally, I like systemd, so I'm going to actually kind of adjust for that as well. And also up here on the options, our boot menu timeout by default, I think it said 8 seconds, but now we're at 2. And then also if you go down here, you got enable theme, and so you can change your theme, which is pretty nice, the default, and so forth. Detailed setting by default. So you can preview the theme even. But to go up here, if you change your boot to, that's where you want to kind of select if you want to set it to systemd. So that's in the advanced settings. And so you could select it here, and then it'll automatically go to systemd when you boot up, and that'll get you a systemd system. Now, I just checked enable saving last boot choice. That you can enable if you don't want to change it here. You could enable the last boot choice and then just choose it when you boot up, and then it'll just save it. So that's another way, but I prefer just using the boot to. So I'm going to go with that, save my changes, and so we'll close out of there. So that's how you can boot to System D if you don't want to use a sysinit, which in my opinion, I like the sysd. So what else do we got? We got package installer here. That looks interesting. So let's open that up real quick. This is the MX package installer. And to me, this stands out above and beyond the Synaptic because you got all these repo tabs up here, which is really great. I love the customization here. So if I type in like Inkscape and we just click on it, we can get some details here by right-clicking and selecting more info. And here you can see it's got a picture of it and a little bit of basic info, but nothing that really shows you the version number or anything like that. Not a lot to be gleaned from the more info though. And I really don't know what version it is. So yeah, I probably wouldn't just choose it there because it's probably the stable version, which is an older version, 111-2, I think. Let's see. Yeah, 111-2. So I really wouldn't want to go with that one personally, but we have the MX test repo here. And if I choose that, now you can see we got 1.22-01, which is way more up to date. So I would actually choose that. You also have Debian backports. So that's another area where you can choose. And that is also showing the older version. So typically for something newer, I would want to go with either the MX test repo or right here in the flat pack. So if you like flat packs, this is probably your best shot at getting the absolute cutting edge latest greatest. Although personally, I'd rather just go with the test repo because it's pretty much the same there, the 1.22. Typically, I'll use a flat pack as kind of a last resort, or better yet, a snap. I like the snaps actually a little better. So I'm just going to install this from the MX test repo. So this is the 1.22 version, quite new and recent, and I like that. And that's probably one of my favorite aspects of the MX package installers is that I do have choices for many variety of software to get the newer versions through the MX test repo. And I'm kind of making an assumption that the MX team probably tests a lot of these themselves. If it kind of passes their criteria, then they put it into the MX test repo. But I'm only speculating. So I'm going to just close out of here real quick. You also got the auto install recommended packages. I like that. A lot of times I like to choose that because I kind of like having the extra things in there. And it's less chance you'll miss out on a dependency. And then under here, under settings, let's see, we got a bunch of stuff. There's our appearance settings, display, firewall, light DM greeter, menu editor, MX tools. That's what we were in earlier. So a lot to choose from. MX team really does a great job at setting you up with a lot of great tools. Here's the customized panel. You can also access by right-clicking on the panel and selecting preferences down there. However, through the tool menu, it'll get you in the same spot. Here we can uncheck automatically increase length and slide down the slider, and you can make your bar shorter if you like. Personally, I prefer a full bar. And here's where you can orientate your bar. Like in the beginning, it was kind of in a vertical position. Probably set as a desk bar, most likely. And so there we have our horizontal, and under appearance, we can set dark mode, and that would override the theme that we are set at. So if you have a light theme, you can actually have a dark theme panel there. And then background style, icons. So you can adjust the sizes separately if you want. And then here's our items. So I'm going to add a show desktop item here. And just put that in there because I like that. That's kind of missing by default. And so now that I have that, I can just kind of select this and it'll minimize everything that's open on the screen. And to me, that's a lot more palatable. I'm just kind of comfortable having that option available. And then back in the menu, under System, we got our conky toggle. So we can turn off our conky, turn it on and off just by toggling the icon there. So that's kind of nice. Personally, I like the conky there and all the info it has, like the hard drive, memory, and CPU usage. Very cool. And then we got Lucky Backup, Midnight Commander, HTOP. Might as well look at that while we're in here. And even though I've been doing all this messing around here, it's still only at about 911 megs. So that's really good. I know in a lot of different desktops, even KDE, sometimes it tends to go up a little bit as you increase your activity. Even after you close your windows, the memory kind of still hangs around. But it's very clean in Xfce, and that's one thing I like about the Xfce desktop. And then in our desktop settings, here we got the About Me. You can change your avatar here. It doesn't have any default pictures, but if you had pictures on your system, which I don't right now, I could select something here and maybe put my picture or a picture of something else there. So that's kind of where you can set your avatar. And then under System, we got our Light DM greeter if you want to change your greetings, login, and then Synaptic Package Manager. So this is my other favorite package manager, and I really like the fact that they have this on here. PD likes to come up and steal the show for some reason, but here he is again for those who have never met PD, and he's a little camera shy, aren't you, PD? That's okay. I don't blame you. But if I had a face like Peter, I would be way less camera shy. What can I say? So anyways, back to where I was. Here we got, if I type in Inkscape, and I'm not seeing anything. Oh yeah, that's the filter. I forgot. So I got to hit the search. I kind of get confused on that. I don't think that's always been there, but I'll just have to kind of clear out the filter here. And then if I hit search and type it in here, I should see the version of Inkscape that I got installed, at least, and there it is, and it's showing that it's installed. Now, if I didn't have an Inkscape installed, I'm pretty sure that this would show the stable version, which is 1.1.2. So I think it's showing me the latest one just because it's installed. But if I did a search for something else like Blender, and there I go again, I was in the filter. I don't want to search there. So I'm going to clear that out. And then everything comes back. So again, let's do Blender in the real search window. And here you can see we got 2.8.3 or 2.83 here. That is a little bit older version. That's kind of our stable version. And that's kind of what I would expect to show up in Synaptic. So if you're okay with the stable version, Synaptic's a great way to go. But if you need the newer versions of things, then I would recommend staying with the MX Package Manager here. And I can't have them both open at the same time. So I'm going to close the Synaptic and then just hit OK here. And I'd be willing to bet that if I go in here and then type Blender in under the MX test repo and do a search for that, it's probably going to be a newer version. So let's go with Blender. And yes, here we got 2.93. So quite a bit newer version here under the MX test repo. So that would be my personal choice, would be that version as opposed to the one on Synaptic. Because again, I just like the new stuff. That bigger number, there's something about it. And I'm just going to pop on this side so we can see the controls and stuff when I hover over these panel items. So here we got our volume control and we got our audio mixer showing up here. So we could even click on the audio mixer and it would bring up our volume control settings, which is always great. And then we got our wired connections. our clipboard stuff, updates, which are none are available, which is good. You can unmount your devices if you got anything plugged in like a USB port. Here's our brightness settings and presentation mode. I like having presentation mode turned on actually, so it doesn't go and lock screen, timeout and all that. Calendar, and then if we right click on our clock, then here instead of showing time only, we could show date and time, which is pretty nice. And also we can change our font sizes here too. So after we get our time and date and so forth, we could separately change our font sizes for the date or the time. So here on the time, I would kind of make that a little bigger, like 12. And then I can see the clock better, but that kind of scrunches down our date. So in order to expose our date there, I'm going to have to scrunch over even farther. Wow. Okay, so like I was saying, in order to be able to see our date there, I'm going to have to go into panel and panel preferences, and then just beef up the row size here, maybe crank it up around 39, maybe 40. And that's pretty good actually. So I could go with that. And so now we can see all the above there. And so I kind of like my clock like that, kind of bigger clock, smaller date. And then over here, of course, we got our open applications and our Thunar, and really love the Docklike plugin and the previews as well. And speaking of previews, there's some hidden settings in the Docklike plugin. So if you want to make your previews bigger, or if you want to make them more real time, like if you have a video running, you want to see it in the previews, moving in a smooth, scrolling, natural manner, we can actually optimize it by going into our .config/xfce4 folder, and then another folder called panels. And then we have this docfile-2.rc. And on your PC, the Docklike config file there could have a slightly different name. It could say docklike-1.rc, but it'll start with docklike anyway. And so if you go into this .rc file to edit it, you can see that there's already some preset settings here. And the last entry in here is show previews equals true. That entry was put into the config file when we checked the box. If you remember, we went in there and turned on show previews so we could see the window previews. So that was added to the config file when we checked that box. But there are hidden settings that are not available in the regular options. And so we can resize our preview windows, and we can also make the preview scrolling faster. For example, if you had a video playing and then you opened up Firefox and you were just kind of doing a Google search, and then you brought your arrow down and you did a preview window and you could see the video, and you arrowed over your video player, your video playback in the preview window would actually be kind of choppy because it would be running at maybe 5 or 10 frames per second. So we can speed that up to make it look more natural and have the milliseconds between updates down around 60. And that would give you a smooth animation in your preview window. So to do that, all I'd have to do is in my config file here, type in preview scale equals, and then maybe 0.3, that kind of give it a nice scale size. And then preview sleep, that's the sleep interval between frames, equals 60. So that's like a 60 millisecond interval. And that'll make things a lot smoother and natural. So then just save it and close it. Now, if you do any settings changes in the Docklike preview, for example, if you turned off window previews or you made some other change in the GUI settings, that's going to erase your changes that you just made in the config file. So you want to remember that if you ever do any changes using the GUI settings in the Docklike preview, then the next time you log in, that show preview settings and so forth, they're going to be gone and you'll have to re-enter them into the config file. So just a little tidbit of knowledge you might want to remember if you like messing with that. But if you never mess with it again, then it's no big deal anyway. So for those changes to take effect, I need to log out. So I'm just going to go up here and hit log out. And then I'll just log back in. And now we should see the effects of our changes. So now if I go over my preview, let's open something first so we can preview it. Then you can see the Thunar preview size is bigger. And to me, that's more consistent with what you would see like in Cinnamon as far as the size goes. I think that's a pretty comfortable size. And this moves a little bit. So let's open up HTOP so we can see some kind of movement. And so now you can see the movement changes in real time with the movement on the terminal screen here with HTOP. Also, if a video was playing, it would be moving in real time. So that makes our scrolling a lot better, whereas by default, that would not be updating as frequently as it does now. So it gives us a nice natural animation there. And so that's how I personally like to adjust the Docklike set in there for the plugin, and really love the Docklike plugin because I just like having those previews. That's just kind of me. Some people, they don't like them, but I do. And so I think that kind of covers everything I wanted to cover here in mxlinux. And I got to say, I'm really impressed with the update. It is, if you are a current user of mxlinux, you don't have to worry about it because MX is quite rolling. All you have to do is the next time you run your update, if you haven't already, that's a nice thing with MX. They kind of take good care of the hard stuff for you. But if you haven't tried MX, now's a great time to give it a shot. I think of all the Debian-based distros, mxlinux is probably one of my favorites. A big part of that is because the MX test repos that are available. I can be in a stable environment, but still have full access to the MX test repos, which I love. Also got the Flatpak option by default. So there's not really any reason to worry about being left behind when it comes to software. And then, of course, you can also install the Snap Store if you want to have Snap packages. And then, of course, my favorite method, which I've talked about in a previous video, is using DistroBox. That gives me access to the AUR, so I can install hard-to-find things right from the AUR. For example, the background remover for OBS Studio or the Gphoto plugins. If I want the latest versions of all that, I can just install OBS Studio through the AUR using DistroBox, and that's all covered. So, the whole software thing, thanks to DistroBox, Snaps, Flatpaks, all that's been eliminated. Whereas just a few years ago, that was kind of a major issue for me and in a lot of cases a deal breaker. But no more. And mxlinux gives you that rock stable environment. And their flagship Xfce I really love because Xfce is my overall favorite desktop to use. And I've been in all of them. I've been in Mate, KDE, GNOME, Cinnamon, Budgie, Enlightenment, and probably a gazillion other ones that I can't even think of right off the bat. But those are all the major ones, I think. Every desktop environment has their little quirks, but Xfce seems to be all reliable. It's the tried and true desktop that just seems to work all across the spectrums, calculating in all the advantages and disadvantages of the different desktops. Xfce seems to be the one that always kind of averages out to the best one, gives me the least headaches, best resource usage, and at the same time is very configurable, so I can rice it up to my heart's content. And that's why Xfce works for me so well. And as you probably know, I'm not really a window manager person. I understand the appeal for window managers like Qtile and Xmonad and all these other, but those just aren't for me. That's, to me, is just like an incomplete desktop, and it's just kind of something you got to build from scratch. If you love doing everything with keyboard strokes and messing with config files to build your environment and all that, that's great. They're wonderful on multi-monitor setups. They give you a few capabilities that you don't normally get by default in desktop environments. But for me personally, it's just a matter of taste. That's why I like desktop environments, because the window managers, in my opinion, just feel too bare bones. I'm not really a minimalistic person. If I was, I'd be driving a Yugo around or something like that. A basic car with no luxuries in it, no air conditioning and roll up windows that you got to crank manually. That's kind of what a window manager is for me. It's just a no frills kind of environment. And I like having cool stuff and convenience. So that's why I pretty much am in a desktop environment all the time and promote desktop environment distros and so forth. In case you ever wondered, but I'm babbling. Overall, mxlinux, I think, is probably one of my favorite distros, and it's not number one on Distro Watch for nothing. So it's been number one for a long time, and a lot of it, I think, has to do with the fact that it's so stable and the way it's put together and all the great utilities that are available. It's just really a wonderful project. I really don't have any cons to say about mxlinux. It's just a wonderful environment. I have it on a couple of my computers of my own, and as I speak, I'm running it on this computer right now. So I'm running the mxlinux Xfce flagship edition as I speak. So how cool is that? Well, it's only cool if you like MX, I guess. But anyways, with that, I hope this review was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.